Lula LeFlore.
Okay. See, October 12th, 1983, Joe Todd interview with Lula LeFlore. Mrs. LeFlore, where were you born?
This one,
Where were you born?
I was born about 2.5 miles out of Stigler.
And when's your birthday?
November the 27th, 1893.
Mm-hmm. Who was your father?
James Monroe Duke.
Where was he from?
Paypon,
Where was he from?
Alabama.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me about your father?
Well, he lived with his father and mother had died, and he lived with his grandmother. And then I think he was about 5 years old when he left Alabama and went to Mississippi. And now I'm not correct on this because I can't remember all the things that happened. But he came to Mississippi. Let's see. I'm trying to think that it wasn't very far from Tupelo, Mississippi. I can't remember the name. I just can't remember.
Oh, that's okay.
Holly Springs.
Holly
Yes,
Springs.
Holly Springs, Mississippi. Now, his father had died, and so he and his mother, with some other relatives, came to Mississippi, and I believe it was I'm sorry, I can't remember.
Oh, that's okay.
Remember things.
Yeah. Who was your mother?
My mother was Martha Barnes.
Where was she from?
No, she was not from Mississippi. She was from Louisiana.
Mm-hmm. When did your parents come to Oklahoma?
Beg pardon?
When did your parents come to Oklahoma?
Well, they came to Hackett City from Mississippi, and then they came on here. I would think it'd be about. Let me see. I can't remember. I have a book here that I don't know whether we could check it out by that or not.
What was the name of the town where they came to?
Beg pardon?
What was the name of the town where they first came?
First came here?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, into Stigler. They came into Hoyt or Whitefield, one of the two. I don't know, but it's in that area. Yeah. But he was very young. And when they left Mississippi, they moved to Hackett, Arkansas.
Okay.
And then from Arkansas, they came to Stigler.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not giving you very much on it. I'm sorry.
Oh no, don't worry about that. Did they buy a farm here?
Did they what?
Did your family buy a farm here near Stigler?
Yes. Well, he had so much land all over the Haskell County, I couldn't tell you just how much. But he had about 8,000 acres in Keota, and then he had acres around here, the pastures and all, and then in Beaver Mountain, and I couldn't tell you just how much acreage he did have.
Were these allotted lands?
Yeah, did he have what?
Were these allotted Indian lands to him?
I'm sorry, didn't answer me.
Were these allotted lands, Indian lands from the Dawes Commission?
Yes, he was. I'm not sure he was with but he was with the bank here from 1904 when it was built until he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And we built. When we moved out here from Hackey, when they came out, my father bought land and they built a little schoolhouse, church house, for everything. And then they could use it for school or church or I'm not giving you much.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
What was the name of the school?
Duke Chapel.
Duke Chapel.
I'll show you a little picture.
Okay.
Put a chair over if you want to.
Okay.
What's that?
Yeah. Do you know anyone that came on the Trail of Tears?
No, I don't. Those were the Choctaws, weren't they?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I don't know any of them that came then, but I know the LeFlore County, in the LeFlore family, they came early, and they lived here quite a long time. Most of them are gone now.
Mm-hmm.
And I married Mr. Chet Leflore in 1920.
Was your husband Choctaw?
Part Choctaw. He was 16th, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Did he ever talk about his family coming over to Indian Territory?
Oh, yes.
Do you remember any of those stories?
Well, not too many of them now. There was in his family. There was two older boys, Frank and well, they could. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
Well, I hate to take up so much of your time.
No.
I can't remember. In Mr. Chet Leflore's family, there was three of those boys, but there were two older boys. One of them lived lived here, and after he married, he moved to Sulphur. And then there's another one of his brothers that lived here, and then he moved to Oklahoma City when he passed away. He lived up there quite some time, and they had children. Chet and I have never had any.
Yeah.
We didn't have any children, but he passed away in 1962. It's 1926.
26.
1926.
Mm-hmm. When did the LeFlore family come to Indian Territory?
Well, I was the better than I remember. They came first to Hackett City.
Do you know what year that was?
What?
Do you know what year that was?
No, I really don't.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember any specific stories that your husband told about his family coming?
Yes, I've been to Mississippi several times. I have relatives there, and when went down to the bookstore to see if I could find books, and I couldn't. They weren't published anymore. But I have an article here on the LeFlore that if you would want to read that or take time for that while they lived in Mississippi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did your husband ever talk about Greenwood LeFlore?
Brother?
Hmm?
No, Greenwood LeFlore was his brother.
Now, is this the one that lived in Mississippi?
That's one was in Mississippi.
Mm-hmm. Did you know him?
No, I never knew him. He passed away some years before I ever married and moved and visited down there. I never visited any of them there.
Ever hear any stories about him, about Greenwood?
Yes, they have a book on Greenwood, but they don't publish them anymore. I tried to get one. Greenwood was Mr. LeFlore's uncle.
Mm-hmm. What did your husband say about Mr. LeFlore, Greenwood?
Greenwood, well, everybody just praises him so highly.
Mm-hmm.
And see, they have a name, they have a LeFlore County down there, the same as we did. Oh, in this book here, see if I have it. It's this is a picture of a Greenwood's home in
That's
I think
nice
I have
yes.
a couple of those. I'm just sorry that I don't know all things.
Yeah. What are your earliest memories of Stigler? What are your earliest memories of Stigler?
Well, when I was born, my father moved here when he was, I would say 15 or 16 years old. And he went to Hart, he went to Hart and worked up there a while. And then when he grew up, he moved down here, and he lived in a farm just about 2.5 miles from here. Married, and then he was a big farmer. It was reported that he had owned more land than any one person in Haskell County. So he bought up lots of land and made money on that, and then he had lots of cattle. He used the farm, and then of course he was had his leg broken, and he wasn't able to work very much. What I mean, he didn't walk around too much at first, but he got to where he could got an artificial limb where he could work, and he had farms on Lane Bottom, farms in Beaver Mountain.
Yeah.
All
Did you know Mr. Stigler?
Yes, I know Mr. Stigler.
What was he like?
He's an Indian. He was a mighty fine fellow.
How come he started the town of Stigler? How come he founded the town of Stigler?
I don't know. I don't know about that. Now on Chet Leflore, on my husband's family, there was two older men. There was I'm sorry.
Oh, no,
I
that's
have
okay. That's okay.
up there. I was pushed against that cabinet, and it hit my head back here and on down to here. And I'm just now having an awful time with it.
When did you start the school?
Well, I guess I started about when I was about 6 or 7 years old, at least 6 or 7.
What was the name of the school?
The Duke Chapel School.
Mm-hmm. Who was your teacher?
Chapel Church. Well, the first teacher we had was Bird, J.W. Bird. He lived a minister, Methodist minister. And then we had different preachers and different, I have a list somewhere of all the preachers and then all the teachers, most of the teachers that lived there. But I couldn't call the names now.
As a little girl, what kind of chores did you do around the house?
Well, went to school, and of course we had had cattle on the farm, and I helped in the work in the kitchen when I was big enough, and then I just went to school, and sometimes I was ill and I couldn't go to school, and then after could go, they quit having school there, and they Duke Chapel School. They built another school building, but I never did go back. Mm-hmm. I went to Spalding College for a while, then went to Muskogee.
What was the name of it?
Spalding College.
Spalding College?
Spalding College for a short time. Mm-hmm. And then later I went to St. Louis, Missouri, and took dressmaking. I went back there 2 years.
Where was Spalding College? Where was Spalding College?
Spalding College.
Yes, ma'am.
In Muskogee.
What kind of school was it? What kind of school was Spalding?
Well, it was just a girls' school for the girls. Mm-hmm. It didn't last long. They had closed the school down.
How come they closed it? How come they closed it?
I didn't get that.
How come they closed the school?
Oh, well, they didn't have too many, it was a Methodist school, but they didn't have too many students in there, and they felt like they'd have to close it down that's, as far as I know, that was what it was.
What year did you go there?
Let's see, I went... I'm not sure that when I went. You want the definite? I have a picture. I might have if you excuse me just a minute now.
Sure. So you went to Spalding College in 1914?
Uh-huh.
What did you study there?
Beg pardon?
What did you study at Spalding?
Well, I was just studying the 8th grade.
Mm-hmm. How far did you go through school?
Well, let's see, we were 2.5. I guess from where we went to school, it was Union Spalding.
Yes, ma'am.
That was in Muskogee, Oklahoma.
Yes, ma'am.
And that after they closed the school, then they made used it in some kind of building. I mean, the building was used as I can't remember, but it was in there. After I married in 1920, this was my home.
Is that here in Stigler?
Yes, it's here at Stigler, 701 North Broadway.
Do you have any memories of the Spanish-American War?
No.
Do you know of anyone that went to the Sequoia Convention?
No.
Are you familiar with it?
No.
It was in Muskogee in 1906.
1906, no.
Do you remember Statehood Day?
Remember what?
Statehood Day?
Stigler.
No, do you remember Statehood Day when Oklahoma...
Statehood Day. Oh, yeah, 1907.
Yes. What was that day like?
Well, of course, I don't remember too much about that, but I know it was quite a... there was lots of people gathered in Oklahoma City, and my father was there. But I just really don't know too much about that at the time.
Were you in Stigler at that time?
Yes, I was living in Stigler.
Was there a big parade or celebration downtown?
Not that I remember of. Not that I remember of. But I just don't remember too much about that. I know you can find my picture on that.
Yeah, right here. You're on the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My father was in the cattle business too, and he would have maybe 700 and 800 head of cattle at a time. Then when my brothers got big enough to drive a Mississippi, well, they could take care of that. But he had a large hay field, and then he had a lot of land just scattered all over Haskell County. And in reading a book the other day, one of those older books, that he had more land in Haskell County than anybody in Haskell County. So he had lots and lots of land, and in Blaine Bottom, Beaver Mountain, and all around Stigler and all. Yeah. I imagine altogether he had quite a bit.
What did your father do with the bank?
He was one of the in the bank.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, he was one of the officers all through his life. And then he was president of it 6 years. I think it was from 26 to 31 or 2.
Did the bank close in the Depression?
Beg your pardon?
Did that bank close in the Depression, 1929?
No, No, is that the year that all the banks closed?
Yes, ma'am.
We had 4 banks at one time. And all 3 of them, there were 3 of them that had to be closed. And then this one that the First National Bank was related with Eccleston Company in Fort Smith. And my father and Mr. Eccles stayed up all night long and worked to keep our bank here from failing. And so we've never had any now, except that one. But he was on the board most all the time, all of his life. They had a...
Did you do any work for the war effort in World War I?
The what?
Did you do any work for the war effort in World War One, 1917?
Oh yes, oh yes.
What'd you do?
Well, I helped to make different things for them, but I couldn't crochet to make jackets from them in First World. But I worked all the time and with different things, you know. So
Okay.
I'll be 90 years old the 27th of this next month.
What's your favorite childhood memory?
Well, there's so many of them I don't remember, but I remember my mother died in 1899, and I was just a little girl, and I was out in the yard working, and I thought I heard my mother call me. And I went in, and Dad said, "What you want, Lula?" And I said, "Mother called me." And he said, "Oh no, she didn't call you." And I said, "Yes, she did. I know, just as plain as if she's standing on the porch talking to me." So I went back out and went to work, and the call came again. And she talked to me. That was just a short time before she. And he went to sleep. We all went back. And he went to sleep, but he slept for 12.
This was in school?
Just in the school, you know. But when we all went back, you know, the 15 minutes was over. Well, we all ran back to school. There wasn't too many of us, but we were all young children, you know. And so he was sitting there just sound asleep. We didn't wake him up, just let him sit there. But from 15 minutes from our recess time, you know, on up to noon, he's sitting in that chair awake. Asleep.
What did he do when he woke up?
When we woke up, he said, well, come on, we'll get into your lessons. And we said, well, it isn't time for lessons, it's time for us to eat now. And so he said, oh, I haven't been asleep that long. I said, look at your watch. And when we looked at his watch, he saw. That was the funniest thing that happened in the school.
That's funny.
The first time I visited was about 95 years old. And then the last time we went down, we went out to see them, why, he was 98 years old. And then my grandmother died. Oh, I don't remember just when she did die, but she lived quite a long time.
Were either one of your grandfathers in the Civil War?
No, my stepfather was in the Civil War. My mother, after her husband died, my father, she, let's see now, if I can get it right. Well, after my grandfather died, then she and some of the other family of the Duke family moved into Hackett City. And but before they moved in there, while they were living in Alabama, I'm getting things mixed up. But my grandfather, Duke, died earlier than his mother and his grandmother. And they came to Mississippi, and that's where they died, in the Mississippi.
Well, we have a good interview. I want to thank you for it.
Well, I haven't told you much.
Oh, yes, you have.
No.
Every little bit helps.
I wish I could just tell you so much of it. My father was big. He endured when the last war, during the first war. Well, anyway, my father and I went out to the home on the farm and visiting with him, and he said, "Lula, I have some papers, and I want to go over the papers with you." So we did, and he said, "I'm not bragging at all." But he said, with the land and the cattle and things that I have, I would be worth $275,000. I just grew up. First job I ever had was Hoyt in Hoyt, and they had some kind of a business up there that he worked with. But he was shot in the left foot, and across over here, about I would say 3 or 4 miles.
Do you have any stories about your husband's family, the LeFlore family?
That is all I have.
Yeah.
Did you get the read where he went to the
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
and where they had their prison?
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Well, I'm sorry that I just cannot tell you so many things.
Oh, that's fine.
Yes, he was a great father.
Yeah.
And
that's a very nice picture.
thank you. '16 and 1917 and 1918. I was in St. Louis, Missouri, taking the dressing.
Yeah. What did you study at Spalding?
Where did I study what?
What did you study while you were at school at Spalding?
Well, we just studied it in the books. School with a different grade, like they always have. But up to the 8th grade, I guess it was there.
Was it a boarding school?
No. Out of Deuce Chapel,
No, and Spalding.
Oh yes, Spalding was.
How many students went to Spalding?
Well, just the girls there. I don't think they had. Oh, I'd say around 40, something like that.
Did you have a dormitory that you lived in?
Yes. The dormitory was turned into. Well, I know they knew what it was, but I can't remember.
What part of Muskogee was it in? What part of town?
Muskogee was just very, very small.
What part of town was the school in? Do you remember?
What?
Do you remember what part of town the school was located in?
Oh, yes, in the southeast from Muskogee.
Who started that school? Who started the Spalding School?
Well, it was a Methodist school. I don't know what church, but it was a Methodist church.
Yeah. Who was in charge of the school?
Well, England, Professor England, when I was there.
What was he like?
Well, he was a very nice person. He was good to his school members and all.
Did you do any work while you were going to school there?
No. No, I suppose that all of our parents paid our tuition.
Where'd you take your meals?
In the school.
In the dormitory?
In the dormitory.
Did you have your classes in the same building as a dormitory?
Yes.
Was the whole school in one building?
Yes.
It was.
No, it's a red brick building in Muskogee.
Is that building still there?
I'm sure that it is.
And the whole school was in that one building?
It's all in one building.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Oh, you took voice lessons in Spalding? Now, this is your voice teacher?
Her name was Lula Deaton. She was graduated from the Chicago University.
What was she like?
Well, she was just a beautiful woman and such a precious woman. She was so good to everybody and all. And I know one time she and her husband visited me, Mr. LeFlore, and she said, we were talking about her voice and all, and Mr. LeFlore said, well, would you play and sing for us? She said, all right. I didn't have a piano at that time, but we went down to the Methodist church and she sang a long time. She's a wonderful person. She was my voice teacher for some time.
Yeah.
But I can't sing anymore. I haven't been able to sing anymore, but I really enjoy it so much.
Yeah. What kind of songs did you learn? What kind of songs did you learn?
Well, I learned just different ones, but most of them were the songs that were popular at that time.
Would you sing one for me?
I can't sing at all. This throat and all.
Yeah.
I would love to. I would just give anything if I could sing again.
Okay.
But it's, I sure can.
Excuse me.
Oh.